Hi, everyone. Hello, hello. Welcome. Hello and happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to the Made in New York Animation Project Incentivize Industry Access event. My name is Whitney Bell, and I am a drama therapist at TAP.
Hi, everybody. Hi again. I'm Jonathan Marrero, and I am the animator here at TAP. I'll be co-facilitating with Whitney today for our Industry Access event.
I'm very excited to speak with today's guest speaker, but before we do, let's review some of our Zoom webinar information. So here's the information about Zoom webinars. This group will operate in a webinar format. Attendees will not be able to turn on their video or microphone during the webinar events. You were counted in attendance as soon as you logged in, so you do not need to follow up with us regarding attendance. If you do lose your connection, try to rejoin the webinar as soon as possible, and you will still receive your incentive even if you get disconnected from the webinar.
Yeah, thank you for that. Are there any goals that we have to go over, Whitney?
Yes, so as we do in every industry access event, we have goals for the day. First, we will start with our opening ritual. Then we will go over the TAP Creed. Then we have a lovely guest speaker with us, Kat, who is a senior talent acquisition specialist. We'll have some time for Q&A that will also be interspersed with our guest. And then we will have our closing ritual.
That's super exciting. I'm excited for our opening ritual. What would that be?
So just like we do in every TAP group, we have our opening ritual to check in, to ground. And so let's all just take a moment to breathe and arrive into the space. If you can put your feet on the ground, that would be nice. Or feel whatever is supporting you, whether that's your chair, your couch, your bed. And either close your eyes or find a soft spot to gaze. And let's just all take one deep breath in all together, breathing in and maybe letting out that breath with a sound. Let's take another deep breath in and breathing it out with a sound. And one more, breathing in and breathing out. Hopefully we have now all arrived. And I want to ask this question about your week. If you could use a food to describe your week, what food would you choose and why? And if you look on the bottom of your screen, there's little chat bubbles that say Q&A. If you click on the Q&A, you can type in your response and we'll share them out with the group. And in the meantime, I want to ask you, John, what would your food of the week be?
Ooh, okay, so my food of the week would be tacos because I am a hot mess wrapped in a hard shell.
I love the poetry in that. For me, I would be like popcorn mid-pop, like when you're waiting for the kernels to like boop, boop, boop. There's like a lot of excitement, but also some waiting, some need for patience. And let's see what we've got here in the chat. We've got a banana. We've got salami. Okay. A milkshake for those who are lazy to have regular ice cream, but you still want to eat something. Oh yeah, I feel that.
You got a New York style pizza.
Ooh, we've got freeze-dried space food. I'm curious about that. What else do we have here? Oh, broccoli, because it's a food that clears the mind, and green is a pure color. I think I'm gonna take some of that like mind clearing for myself. I really appreciate that. We also have what looks like sushi in the chat. More pizza, pasta. I'm seeing ice cream because it was so hot at the park. Yeah, it's been really hot lately.
Bacon wrapped hot dog with pickles and ketchup. That sounds great.
We've got a bacon, egg, and cheese, a lemon. These are all great. I'm so curious about like what inspired these foods. Shrimp tempura, watermelon because it's sweet and refreshing. Awesome.
Yeah, thank you everybody for responding. I love the engagement. And like every session that we have here at TAP, we're going to touch base with our creed.
So we have our creed in front of us. These are all of the agreements that we make together as a TAP community. Number one is we show respect. We are a team of individuals from different backgrounds and experiences with a shared interest in learning. We live up to the same expectations as we would in person. We mute ourselves when we are not speaking in order for all voices to be clearly heard.
Number two, we take care of our technology. We utilize our technology with care and professionalism in order to support the learning experience of all who attend.
Number three, we focus. We have a lot to learn. All our attention is focused on the group. We do our best to limit distractions.
We participate. We are engaged in the group. We abide by the creed when asking questions and sharing our creative work.
Awesome. And five, we own the content. This is our group. This is our opportunity to learn more about the animation industry and express ourselves creatively.
We attend group. Our voices and ideas are valued. We attend each group we are registered for. We log into group on time and stay until the end. Our Zoom names match our registration names.
Awesome. Thank you for going over that creed with us, everyone. And now we are so excited to welcome today's guest speaker, Kat. Kat, I don't properly know how to pronounce your last name. So when you come on, could you, I just want to make sure I get it right.
That's so kind of you, Whitney, to say that. I really appreciate it. My last name is Gulaci. It is Hungarian. I'm originally Venezuelan Hungarian, and I'm based normally in Brooklyn, New York, spending this week here in Florida, where my family now lives. Yes, but otherwise, I would pronounce my last name as Gulaci.
Welcome. Thank you, Kat.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here. You know, I've had the pleasure last summer of having spent some time of doing what both you, Jonathan, and you, Whitney, have been doing. So it's very, very rare for me to be on the other side and to talk about myself. I'm actually feeling quite shy about that on this Friday afternoon. I did not have the luxury of being able to sort of jump in with my food if I were a food this week. Much like I think it was Gloria who posted in the Q&A, I would probably be pizza because Friday is very much synonymous with pizza and pizza parties. It's something that I'm very much a big fan of, especially New York City pizza. So as Whitney and Jonathan were saying, it's such a pleasure to be here with you all. I am a senior talent acquisition specialist, which is probably maybe a fancier way of calling myself a recruiter or, talent sourcer, as it were. I grew up in a studio back in the day called The Mill. The Mill is a post-production studio called, currently the studio that I worked in was here in New York, but it originated in London with some pretty high profile films such as Gladiator and Black Hawk Down. And I'm trying to think of some other things that I could say about my role there. I essentially started off as a runner, which is a production assistant, and worked my way up to that of a computer graphics or CG scheduler. Then became interested in the world of talent development. I actually thought I wanted to go the production route and realized that in the world of commercials, which is kind of different than that of the world of features or episodic, you'd have to entertain clients. And I wasn't very good at schmoozing. I didn't feel comfortable. It wasn't speaking to my personality. And I was trying to look to see what other opportunities arose. And thankfully, I was supported in my interests of wanting to become a talent manager. So we can talk a little bit about that throughout our time together. I work with a lot of studios that focus on post-production, interactive design. I really, really care about people. A lot of what my job entails is working with people. I think, something else that's really, really important to us here at TAP, because I'm also the industry outreach advisor, as many of you know, is that, I really advocate education, mentorship, inclusion. I'm also co-chair of an incredible organization across the US, across Canada, across Europe, known as Access VFX, which I highly recommend. It's accessvfx.org. For those of you who are interested in learning more, it's sort of a cross-company initiative that promotes diversity and inclusion in the world of animation, VFX, and games. And I think, hopefully, I try to abbreviate myself. I tend to be a little bit long-winded, so hopefully that gives you enough of an intro of who I am.
That was fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, no, I think it's amazing just to hear the like how many different opportunities there are, even for you inside of a thing to like venture and like figure out your own kind of path within this like umbrella that holds all of these things. It's really fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Do you have any tips for somebody who might want to do that, who might want to do something a little different than what they're doing? And any advice to how to get there?
Absolutely. So something that I didn't mention is I do work with a lot of organizations and schools focusing on professional development and teaching our participants and our students how to learn about the industry. I think so many of us who are interested in the world of commercials or the world of features or when it comes to computer graphics and the like. I don't know if some of you had the pleasure of, I believe it was Laisa who was here a few weeks back, who works at a studio called Hornet, which focuses a lot on the world of animation. And I think so many of my students that I taught this past semester at the time thought, oh, I have to be an artist if I go this route. But the beauty of our industry is that there's so many opportunities out there. Some of you, unlike me, will really want to go the world of production and work with clients and work with fellow artists in the industry. Others might want to go the artistic route. Some studios, such as The Mill, such as Hornet, such as, I'm trying to think of a number of other organizations, Nickelodeon, they all offer opportunities where you can work very closely with the artists and help schedule artists and talent on specific projects to give them a sense of how studios or how projects confirm and how projects need specific talent. So it's a very collaborative effort, and there are a lot of opportunities out there for those of you who are talented artists but may not want to go the artistic route. I hope that answers your question. I feel like I sort of did a little bit of a roundabout.
That was great, Kat. I'm wondering, what would you say about if we're not sure what area we want to focus on, or what if someone has a lot of different interests and isn't sure where to start? What sort of advice or feedback could you give around that?
Absolutely. I think so much of what we do in our industry is we expand upon our networks, and networking is a way to sort of get us ourselves out there more frequently. So what I do advise, and I see that Ellen kindly posted in the chat a link for Access VFX. I actually, for those of you who might have a bit more of an interest, or even those of you who don't have that focus just yet, I didn't when I was much younger, back in the dinosaur ages. I will say that, like, I think something that I would sort of say is to sort of create or find a mentor. So Access VFX is a great opportunity to do that. There's an opportunity to sign on, and then there's a software that's kind of like Slack. It's called Prospera. It connects you to someone in the industry who might be able to advise you or help, support you in your growth and your development, answer any questions you might have about the industry. Some pretty well-known and celebrated artists are part of this website. So, they really want to be able to mentor with you. Sometimes the time commitment doesn't have to be as much as you'd like. It's sort of what you put into it. But what I definitely recommend is just looking up studios, looking up companies, finding ways to connect with other people. There's so many job opportunities out there. So many big name companies like DreamWorks, Disney, Pixar, Nickelodeon. I was mentioning some of the commercial studios such as Hornet. There are some, AR, VR studios that focus on experiences and like Silver Spoon Animation or, even studios like Frame Store. They're all essentially focusing on different aspects in the world of post-production or production. There's just a lot out there. So I encourage you to either, for those of you who feel comfortable, to go onto places or websites like LinkedIn and just sort of see what other people who have your dream careers look like, like what they're focusing on. What are some of the softwares they might be focusing on? Is there an artist or a fellow individual in our industry who has the same goals or visions and they have your career that you want 4 or 5 years from now? I'm trying to think of some other avenues, but I think so much of what we do is we're always evolving. When I started off at the Mill, which if you go on to themill.com, that gives you a sense of some of the types of projects that the Mill used to work on when I was there. There are a lot of different types of roles that you could have, whether you're a runner, much like how I started off in the industry. You focus on client services, you get to sort of establish pretty serious connections with others in our industry. I think there's just a lot of opportunity out there, and very much, having that confidence to say, oh, I kind of want to pursue this other opportunity that I didn't know existed. Our industry is very supportive, very nurturing, and I think there's a really great opportunity to really, if you work hard and what you put into it is, you just really care about other people, you're very collaborative, the industry will help support you in that direction. So I just think, look up, you see a commercial that you like on television when you're watching the Super Bowl, have a look and, sort of see what are some of the projects that have come out of that studio. I think, again, LinkedIn networking is also really, really important. But I definitely recommend just, there's a game for those of you gamers out there. I'm also a bit of a gamer. Like if there's a proper project or game that you've been sort of pursuing that you really love, look up the company that made this game. You'd be surprised at how many opportunities that exist when you can sort of research the product and research the model and research the commercial, that I think you'd be pleasantly surprised. There are a lot of Marvel movies out at this time that keep coming out. It makes me happy. Not all of my friends feel the same way, but that's okay. So I think even just sort of, seeing what are some of the companies that worked on the post of your favorite Marvel film. Shang-Chi is one of my most favorite ones that came out recently. And a lot of studios worked on the post-production. So getting a sense of what those roles look like, what did some individuals or some fellow talented artists contribute to these projects? Just, do your research and try to see who might be some of the artists who contributed to it.
Thank you, Kat. I hear collaboration as a really big theme of leaning into the communities that we're in, getting curious and asking questions. And so on that note, I just want to open up the space to everyone. If a question popped into your mind or something that Kat said piqued your interest, feel free in the Q&A to add a question, share a comment, so that also you can all engage in the conversation with us.
Thank you, Whitney. Yes, collaboration is really, really important in our industry. I guess I didn't really sort of explain what it is that I do in my day-to-day, which is probably something that I should probably expand upon. I tend to, as I said earlier, kind of work as a recruiter. So within a studio, if a specific project is looking for freelance artists to work on a job, I can help place those artists based on my network or the connections that I have, or some of the artists whom I think might be a good fit for that project. If you're looking at, I'm trying to think of, specific roles that a company might need within their space, whether it's working as a background designer or it's working as a developer. There are a lot of different roles out there. And I think what recruiters or talent managers do is they partner with heads of department, they partner with companies, they partner with studios to help find the right team dynamic on specific projects. So that's another reason why I think the collaborative element is so important. What we do in our industry, we put in so many hours and we spend so much time with other people that if I work with schools or if I work with artists who may not be as collaborative, even if they're the most talented person in the room, I may not consider them for the specific role that we're looking at, because at the end of the day, so much of what we do is very, very much a teamwork type space.
I'm wondering, in your day-to-day, do you have a favorite task or the part of your week that you're really looking forward to when you go through your process?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. I think so much of what we do is, like I said, all about people. So being able to sit down and schedule out my day, have interviews with artists who want to work in the industry. Um, it's really important to have very diverse stories, diverse backgrounds in terms of the talent that we work with in particular studios. And I think being able to share that space and have a different voice really enhances the culture or the studio environment. Um, I talk a lot about, talent, and that really is what drives and motivates companies. Um, we're living in a very interesting time where the past few years have obviously been quite heavy and been very there's just been a lot of uncertainty. But one of the positives that has come out of these spaces is that in this history of these past few years is that um, so many of us can share the space online like we're doing, which essentially can make a lot of the relationships and environments within what we do so much closer. I think, we're being able to collaborate is really, really important. And I think, a lot of companies now are offering more opportunities to future generations and future artists who want to pursue our industry and who want to do more of what we're doing. Um, and I think they're getting used to being able to work remotely, which in and of itself is offering a lot of opportunities, whether you want to be an animator, or if you want to be a designer, or if you want to be a compositor or a producer, or work in post production in general, or be a developer or a technical artist. These are all very important roles. And I think a lot of companies have become a lot more comfortable working remotely that way, which is, it's quite exciting. Um, so that's something to think about as we move forward in our careers. I think that hopefully, I think that sort of, yeah. Please, you both should rein me in because I can go on tangents.
I thought that what you shared was very useful. And I'm curious if you would be open to sharing maybe some successes or challenges that you faced in your position, and maybe even specifically around collaborating with other people.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. I think, let me think. You mean in terms of finding, I'm trying to think of the best way of sort of looking at this, like successes. I think so much of what we do is really exciting when you see others evolving in their careers. Some words of wisdom that I would offer those of you who are applying for opportunities or want to think about opportunities is that connecting with people is so important. Um, Studios or companies or talent managers or recruiters are not looking for perfection. They're looking for individuals who really are passionate and care about what they do and really want to move forward and inspire others. And I think something I would think about is the fact that, when you do apply for positions, for those of you who are applying now, or those of you who will be applying maybe even 3 or 4 or 5 years from now, depending upon when you feel right in your careers, having that follow up with studios and that partnership. I think I'm in touch with so many artists throughout the years that I've met when they were 14, 15. Now they're, leading projects as computer graphics artists or designers or creative directors. And it's very exciting to see their careers rise. And so many of their successful experiences have been attributed to the fact that they're, if they go into an interview with a company, they send a follow-up email thanking the studio for their time, or they check in with studios or recruiters or other artists to show their latest work. They're constantly working on their own personal projects. So seeing individuals evolved is the most exciting part of my career, and that makes me feel successful when I see others succeed. And yeah, hopefully that answers it, but I think that's really, really important when it comes to the world that we're all in and the world that we're all working in and the goals that we have as individuals. Even if you're at the most senior level of your career, you're always evolving, you're always growing, and finding that next challenge for yourself is really important. And then for those of us who are just starting off our careers or not even sure where we want to begin, just sort of doing that research and knowing that Something that I talk about in my classes is that of your personal brand, how you want to be seen for the rest of the world, whether it's the world of animation, games, what you want to be doing. As long as you have your values and you're thinking about what it is that you want to do, and you're collaborative, others will help you get there. Yeah, I think that hopefully answers your question.
It does. Thank you, Kat. So speaking of people, finding the right people who will help you get to where you're going, I'm curious, what are some things that helped you get to where you are now? Maybe that's specific relationships, maybe that's personal strengths and values within yourself.
I love that. Again, I think approaching every conversation whenever possible with empathy. I think being able to understand that someone else is coming from a different place that you are, much like you're coming from a different place than they are, different stages of your careers, different experiences, different backgrounds is really, really important. And also just staying in touch with people. I think so much of what we do is about approaching this world and this industry, which can be very, very competitive, with a certain amount of empathy and kindness is really important. I think in terms of how my career has evolved is I've been continuously communicative. And those whom I've seen around me who are successful as artists, producers, or schedulers, I think are continuously having important conversations with themselves and with others around them, challenging themselves, putting themselves in environments that are uncomfortable. Getting to that next step in your careers, especially when it comes to our world, is can be very, very uncomfortable, can be very, very challenging. Some individuals may not be as supportive, and that can be very, very difficult and very, very discouraging. I've been in a number of environments or roles where not everyone has felt collaborative, and coming into the office each day and also feeling unsupported can be very, very disheartening, very difficult. But I think still doing your best to being communicative, still having those important conversations. When again, you see someone who has a job that's interesting to you, asking them questions, approaching this or your interest in a career from a place of curiosity is really, really important. And I have to say that I really do think it's important to remind yourself that if you don't know what it is that you want to do, that's more than all right. You will get there. Everything happens in time. And, I think when you think of how you want to present yourself to the world, or what it comes to in terms of your elevator pitch, or how you introduce yourself to future companies or future opportunities, not knowing what your ideal job is more than okay. It's just more a matter of just learning. So I think, to answer your question in a shorter version, Whitney, I would say asking questions, approaching from a genuine place of curiosity about what others do around you, not feeling discouraged when someone isn't kind, because I think approaching everything from a place of kindness is really, really important. Knowing that not everyone is going to have the same perspective or vision that you'll have, and that's okay too. In our industry, every unique voice is celebrated. And also just realizing that in any industry, in any role that we all have, you're going to have some hard and difficult days, but just reminding yourself in your respective careers that everything is temporary. Each day is temporary. You'll start a new day the next day, and everything can be fresh. But just sort of not being too discouraged, because everything does tend to take time when you're evolving as the talented individuals that you all are.
Yeah, thank you. That is awesome. You really should really dig deep and know kind of, and be courageous in yourself to kind of venture these things, and figure them out. Have curiosity. We have a question from Naomi. She says, how does the recruitment process usually go for you? Has there been any good/bad applications?
Oh, that's great. I think, that's a really great question, Naomi. I think there are several different ways in which a studio can approach bringing on a recruiter, or when I worked at the mill, what would often happen is I would work with the heads of department, and let's say the heads of compositing or the head of design would say to me, Kat, I want to look at an art director role. I'd love to find someone who has 3 to 5 years experience. I'd love for that person to have illustration skills. I'd love for them to have managed a team. I would often work with the head of department or with a lead on a job description to help find the right fit for this role. Some studios will post on a website. Other studios might prefer that I would use LinkedIn as a resourcing tool to help find talent that speaks to that skill set. So that's what a lot of the day-to-day would look like. And then as individuals apply, or alternately, as I seek out candidates for specific roles, I would set up some initial conversations just to sort of generate conversation, connect with the candidate, because we're not just hiring someone to fulfill a responsibility or a role. We're hiring someone to, whose story is very important, and we want them to, we're hiring a personality, we're hiring an energy, we're hiring someone who's going to be part of a team, and that's so important. And then to answer your other part of the question, which is more along the lines of good applications or bad applications, I wouldn't necessarily say that applications are bad per se, but I think what's really important to me is to get to know the person. And I know that a lot of my I would pretty much say all of my fellow recruiters would probably agree with me that we just want to get to know you. So if you apply for a role and you don't share a bit about your personality, let's say you just reach out and say, hey, is that design position still available? Or hey, is that production position still available? Doesn't really give us on the other side of the coin an opportunity to get to know who you are as an individual. So sharing a bit about yourself, what are your interests? What are your hobbies? Preferably, what are your hobbies outside of the world that we're in? For those of you who are starting off in your careers or want to start off in your careers in a few years, a lot of studios, particularly if you don't have as much experience, studios are going to look for, whether you're an artist or in operations, candidates who have connections to the world of client services. So let's say you work at a restaurant, or you work at a coffee shop, or you work in retail. Anything that sort of shows that you connect with other people and that you work with others on a team, that's really, really important for studios to see that. So for those of you who are feeling discouraged that as you're applying for positions, you don't feel like you have enough opportunities or experience in the world of what it is that all of us do, don't be discouraged by that, because a lot of what you do now or what you might be doing in future roles are skills that are very translatable or transferable. So I just encourage those of you who reach out for opportunities just to give a studio an opportunity to learn more about you. So for example, if I were to apply for a job as a recruiter or to oversee recruitment, I would say things along the lines of, would love to apply for this opportunity. I have so-and-so amount of experience in this industry. Adding to that, I play the banjo. I speak Spanish. I speak Hungarian. I really love working under tight deadlines. I love working with others. Keywords such as collaborative, which we've said a few times throughout this time together. Finding keywords that showcase that you're a team player, that you have leadership skills, that you're collaborative. These are all buzzwords that studios look for. So just give the opportunity to the studio or to whomever is reading your application to know a little bit more about you and what it is that you're doing. And then you can also highlight, especially for those of you who are applying for the earlier stages of your careers, what are the next steps for yourself? For those of you who know what you might want to do you want to direct that next big music video? Do you want to lead a team on the next Marvel film? These are all very tangible goals, even if they may not feel like it. And I think there's an opportunity to really pursue and work towards these next steps.
Wonderful. We just want to take a moment to welcome folks into the space who may have had an issue with your link. We just want to acknowledge that you are in the space. Don't worry about attendance. We've got that all taken care of. And you can just lean in to what our lovely guest speaker, Kat, is offering around her experience in the industry. Feel free to add questions or comments in the chat. And welcome to those who've joined us within the last few minutes. I'm one.
Go ahead, you can take it, Whitney.
Okay, I was gonna ask Kat if you would be open to doing a little summary of your position for folks who weren't able to hear what you do.
That's a great question, Whitney. So for those of you who are just joining us this afternoon, I am Kat, and I'm a talent acquisition specialist, which is a fancy way of saying recruiter or talent manager. I help place talented individuals within opportunities within studios or within organizations that speak to their strengths, whether they're artists, producers, developers, depending upon what world they're in, animators, and try to find and partner with organizations or with heads of department to find the right talent for the right roles. That's probably a more abbreviated way of saying that.
Okay, we have a question from Ariel. They ask, what can one expect from a second round of interview?
Ooh, so for me, I will often have a very initial, that's a great question. I'll have a very initial chat with a candidate. And if in the back and forth, it feels like that candidate might really, feel that this opportunity is not only for them, but that we also feel that they're enthusiastic about the role and they really want to give it their all, we'll set up a second conversation. Most likely, if it's a second chat, it'll be a video call or a Zoom call or a phone call with the hiring manager, so as to talk through the position in detail. It's also an opportunity for you to ask relevant questions for the job description you might have seen posted, or ask relevant questions about the role that I might not have expanded upon in that very first call. And it gives you a chance to really meet someone who could be your potential head of department or a fellow colleague within the industry. Something that I do advise to all of you who are interviewing, it's not just about the studio or the team getting to know you. This is your opportunity to know them. If there is any discomfort in the interview, or you feel like the potential studio is not interested or giving you the respect and time that you deserve, that's something that you should think about for yourself too, because at the end of the day, it's important for you to be working in an environment that's supportive and, as I said earlier, collaborative. And then sometimes there'll be a third or fourth interview, more because and it's not to sort of express uncertainty on behalf of the studio, it's more an opportunity for them to really give you an opportunity to meet others from the team. As studios grow, a lot of the staff have input and obviously, want to get to know whom their future colleagues are. So it's kind of like an opportunity for you to have an informal chat. It doesn't mean that the studio is unsure of you. It just often means that they want you to get to know more of your future colleagues. So bear that in mind as you have these conversations. Something I would also add when it comes to the interview process, and I always say this to my students at, let's say, Brooklyn College, feel free to bring a notebook. We can tend to, no matter how talented we are or how confident we can be, approaching the interview can be a very nerve-wracking feeling. It can sort of leave one with a lot of discomfort. I know for myself, speaking for myself, you could feel very intimidated and you may not know who you're talking to in some cases. Always feel free to do as much research as you can about the company, take some notes, and also feel free to bring a notebook so that, come prepared with questions that you're worried you might forget if you do tend to feel nervous. So write the things you might want to say. I always encourage those of you who are interviewing too to also practice amongst yourselves, really get to know or get a feel for that setting. And again, bring a notebook into the space. It doesn't make you look unprofessional. In fact, it makes you look like you're pulled together. You've got everything sorted. Because I know sometimes I can come out of a conversation with a studio as I'm being interviewed with a lot of questions and realizing that all the questions that I thought of before I went in completely went out the door because I was too nervous to ask them, or because I just completely lost track of time and forgot. So could be a number of different reasons.
Kat, I've also had that experience myself, so I'm so grateful that you're sharing that. Like before the interview, I feel cool, calm, collected. I'm ready to go. I've got all my questions, all my comments, and then I walk into the room and I'm like, where am I? Who am I? Why am I here? How did I get here? So I really appreciate that. Yeah, like to be able to just have the tools that we need in place to support us. And I'm wondering, Kat, what are some questions that we might want to ask a potential employer in an interview? What are some things that we should keep in mind? What are things that we might want to know for ourselves that maybe we hadn't thought of?
You're keeping me on my toes, Whitney. That's a great question. I would definitely say that something that's important for me to ask a potential employer is, what do you like most about your job? That's something that's really important for me because if the person that I'm asking that question to feels a certain hesitancy in how to answer that question, then I might question my own intentions for wanting to work in that environment. I think most of the time, those who do answer that type of question are very excited about their role and what sort of part they play, even if they're at the very executive level or head of department, that kind of situation. So with that said, I think something that I would sort of say is really, what do you like most about your job? What are some challenges that you faced moving from this company to this company? What would you do differently in your day-to-day at the studio? But I think a lot of that, those are questions that I would ask. What do you see, even if you're talking to an executive creative director or the managing director of a company, what are the next steps for your future career? What do you want to do more of? Often studios will give you the opportunity to know with whom you're interviewing. So I also advise that you look up the individual who might be interviewing you, because you might be able to ask them very targeted, very specific questions about their career. And especially if they have a career that's similar to how you'd like to evolve, asking them a few targeted questions about that is also very important, I think. But yeah, I think the main question that I think a lot of us recruiters will often ask, or would often recommend being asked, is, what do you like most about your job?
Thank you for that. We have another question. The question is, if I wanted to start doing animation after college, do you think that's too late?
Oh, that's a great question. And I would say absolutely not. And I would definitely say to every single one of you who's worried that it's too late, it is absolutely not too late. In fact, there are a lot of incredible resources out there that I highly recommend you all take a look at. As a recruiter, I don't believe that everyone should have the same type of career in the world of animation, games, and VFX. I think having different experiences only makes you more talented as the artist that you are. So going back, there's so many free exercises and softwares that are out there and opportunities to connect with fellow talent in the industry. So I definitely recommend those of you who do want to go to the world of animation to sign up for Access VFX. You will get paired with someone who's a mentor who's will support your career in that space. But adding to that, when you're looking at Unreal as a software or you're looking at Blender as a software, on Instagram, there are a lot of incredible accounts, and I can't quite think of, my goodness, this one account in particular that teaches you like the very basics of animation. I will have to sort of track this down with my fellow TAP colleagues, because there's a wonderful Instagram account that I followed recently that I need to look for. There's just a lot of free resources out there. I don't think you have to go to a more formal curriculum to learn and expand your careers. I know artists who, one of the most senior VFX supervisors who's working at Framestore Episodic here in New York, he started off his career in finance for many decades and saw a friend who was working in the world of post-production, and he said, I want to do that. So, how do I get there? And now he's running shows, some of the biggest high-profile shows that you've all heard of. I know individuals who, I have a friend who bartended for many, many years and went to school. I don't remember what he went to school for, actually, now that I think about it, but decided to take up animation himself years later and is a very, very talented animator. I know individuals who started off as architects, individuals who wanted to study medicine, individuals who didn't know for the longest time what they wanted to focus on. And I think, we all have our timings and we all have our experiences. And the most successful companies and the most successful studios are composed of a variety of talented artists and individuals with different unique voices, different stories to tell. Those are the places that are the most successful, hands down. So never ever for one moment in your respective careers feel, I don't ever want you to feel like you can't go for these goals and these dreams, because some of the most successful and most talented artists have pursued, animation or VFX or games as like, like their second part of their careers or their third or fourth or fifth part of their careers. So once again, I just wanted to reassure you of that.
Thank you for speaking to that evolution and timeline of all of our individual processes. In line with these sort of conversations about qualifications and what we may or may not need to step into a role, we have a question in the chat, which is, if everyone in the department has a master's degree, should I be concerned if I don't have one while going into the interview?
No, not at all. I absolutely say that hands down. I am a big proponent for, having your own, I keep saying this, but your own unique way to receive or to pursue your career. I definitely feel that a degree does not represent your talents fully. I think, we all have different ways in which we learn, in which we represent ourselves, in which we, help elevate our careers. And I think as long as you're engaged and as long as you're interested, and the fact that is that if you're already going into the interview, they've seen your qualifications, they're already interested in you, and so depending upon what aspect of your career you'd like to pursue, it's really more a matter of they're already interested, you're already there. But having that next step for yourself is just really, really important, how you want to see your career evolve. But I definitely, especially when it comes to the world of animation, you don't need to have a master's. You're not, you don't need to have, a college degree. You just really have to have passion. You have to work through when it gets difficult. That's really the most important advice I can give you. It's more a matter of, being engaged, being passionate, getting through the tough stuff, and, working through it, and having patience with yourself and with others, but mostly yourself. We can all be very hard on ourselves, particularly when it comes to this fast-paced environments that we're in. So bearing that in mind as you work through these next steps. But rest assured that there is no cookie cutter formula, if that's the right expression, on how to pursue these next steps.
Thanks, Kat. I want to share that there's a reflection in the chat that was a great question. So to the person who asked, just be aware sometimes when we step up and we ask the things that are on our minds, it also supports other people in the space. We will have the space open for about 5 more minutes for Q&A. So if you have another question that comes to you, please ask in the chat. I'm sure that Kat is happy to answer it. And I want to reflect, someone shared in the chat that it is so great to see you as a speaker, Kat, and thank you so much for sharing your experience. So I wanted to make sure to share that with you.
That's very sweet. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. And we have another question, which is, can you give me some advice? I'm starting school in a few weeks and I'm a bit nervous.
Oh gosh, I remember that feeling, and I can't believe the summer has flown by as quickly as it has. I think we still have a few more days left, and I'm hanging on to those moments. I'm one of the few people who really appreciates this heat we've had in New York, this heat wave we've had. Just hanging on to that before winter. I have to say, when I was growing up and also thinking about going into university or going into class, whatever program it might be. Because, you might be speaking about school as college or school as university, but it could be a new program you're signing up for or whatnot. There's always a certain amount of jitters that come into play. I think, just trying to, it sounds a bit cheesy, but just really believing in yourself and just sort of taking it one day at a time, that always helps me. It can be very nerve-wracking when you're with different students, especially if you're in a different environment you're not used to. Something that I talk about a lot with my fellow colleagues is, sort of going outside or doing something for yourself each day really helps. I personally meditate. There are a lot of guided meditations out there. There are a lot of meditations on YouTube that you could access for free. You could just sort of find a quiet space each day. But I do that first thing in the morning, and a lot of my students do too, I've noticed. I've been chatting to them about how they set the day. I think that tends to help because you're sort of having a quiet moment for yourself before you sort of hit the ground running. A lot of us, so many of us have other responsibilities with our families, have the stress of, doing homework, in addition to this new environment. So that sort of helps me feel a bit balanced. And also just realizing that anytime something's difficult or I feel nervous, I always remember and just constantly remind myself that it's only temporary. It's all temporary. So no matter what I feel, and I've been actually doing this a lot lately with myself when it comes to work and some deadlines that I have to hit, everything is temporary. And so I think reminding myself of that really, really does help. But also just approaching each day and each moment that might be new or challenging, but from a place of kindness. Again, as I said earlier, we can all be quite hard on ourselves when it comes to, who we are as people, the things that we want to achieve that we haven't done yet. How overwhelming things can feel. Starting school or starting a new year can be very anxiety feeling. You have those feelings where you're riddled with a certain amount of anxiety and pressure and stress. And again, just recognizing that you're just getting one step closer to where you'd like to be, or you're working through, the next stage of your career or the next stage of who you are as a person. Every day might be surprising, but, trying to also end each day, and this again might sound cheesy, but I do find a lot of joy in that for myself, taking a moment to be grateful and, looking at each day from a place of gratitude. What were some of the wins? Okay, today was my first day at school. It was overwhelming. It was frustrating. It was this. But what are some takeaways from my day? Like as I end each day, what's something good that happened? Oh, I got to see a friend I hadn't seen in a while. Or, oh, I actually played this game after school that I really liked. For those of us who do have the ability to do that and play video games. But I think just sort of looking back on each day and just recognizing that there are a couple of moments where you can find joy and something positive. And then also reminding yourself that some aspects of the day are temporary.
Thank you, Kat. We have some reflections in the chat. That's so true. I'm starting college in a few days, and this is awesome and thoughtful advice. So maybe it's a little corny, but maybe it also works.
Thank you.
And we also have another question in the chat, which is, what if I have multiple interests? I want to go into graphic design, but I also want to start my own business, and I want to create music, fashion design too, but I planned on being a digital fashion designer.
Oh, nice. I think that's a really, really, really good point. I think so many of us in this space do have a wide range of interests and curiosities that we have about life. And I think that's a really, really great question. I think really just setting up conversations with people who are doing what you want to do. Again, I can't stress that enough, because having those chats, hearing where the challenges are, where they're not, listening to talks online, there's so many opportunities to attend panel sessions and in-person events these days, but mostly online events across the group where you do get to hear people's different stories. You'll meet other entrepreneurs who have begun their own business, and they'll tell you, the hardships that they faced as they were navigating this new challenge for themselves. I personally also find that so many of us who are in New York, we all just have so many interests and so many passions. So I think just, find those individuals who have the jobs that you want. A lot of those places, once again, could be on LinkedIn. Someone could have a career as a talented composer or a talented record producer. Someone else could be a really great entrepreneur and could speak to that space. And if you're interested in graphic design, I think you'll find that a lot of those worlds could collide, that maybe you won't have your own business yet, but you might work towards that within a very specific timeline. And I love that you want to create music. I think that's so important, and music has gotten through so many of us through some pretty difficult times. So basically, tracking people down who have other unique stories that you'd like to have for yourself.
Thank you so much for that, Kat. And also thank you, Whitney, for holding space with me and all of our co-moderators. Before we close out, just as we opened, we have a little opening ritual. So when we close out, we're going to have a little bit of a closeout ritual. And I'll give it back to Whitney for that.
Thanks, Sean. So as we come to the end of week 5 of programming, if you are in the TAP program or just your week so far, what is one highlight that you'd like to keep with you? What is one highlight from your week that you'd like to keep with you? It could be a feeling, a favorite memory, a moment of inspiration, something that you want to hold on to. And you can let us know in the chat. We'll read these out. John, how about you?
Well, this week was special for me, so it's going to be an easy answer. I just got a puppy, so that's been the highlight of my week. Spending all the time that I can with my new friend.
Oh, I love that. Thanks, John. And in the chat, I'm seeing happy, a sense of responsibility because I've started my first job and I'm managing my money. Awesome. Hanging out with my cousins. I hope that we get to share the project that we came up with as a group. Yeah, so projects coming together. Okay, I'm seeing I got a seat on the crowded train every day this week during rush hour. Now, listen, we're all in New York. We know that this is a big deal. Great. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time, for participating with us. Oh, there's also happiness and healing in the chat. Learning a new coding language. There's so many that are coming in, passing my class. So just thank you, everyone, for being with us in this space, for participating in the closing ritual.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for coming through. It was a great industry access. Thank you so much for showing up. Thank you, Kat, again, and everybody involved.
Have a wonderful week, everyone.
Oh, please remember to stay connected. You can get us on social media, just like anywhere else. You can visit the Animation Project on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook, and on Twitter. Here are some links to look at before we head out.